Greetings and thanks for coming, for joining us for another episode of the Many Hats of Coco. Today we're coming to you live from Tsunami Books. Thanks, Scott, for having us in Eugene, Oregon. We have an author today, Michael Foster, a writer of the Western experience, of American Indian experience, and may well be considered a historian of the American Indian experience through his novels. I'm really happy to have you. Michael, care to join me up on stage here? Come on.
Hi, Theo.
Hi. Have a seat, and let's have at it. I did have an opportunity to read one of your novels and enjoyed it much. And I just want to jump to a quick question about this novel. It's called Wakanisha?
Yes.
Wow, I'm pretty good. And Is Love Enough? Is that the full title?
It is.
Wakanisha. And would you care to elaborate on what the Indian name means and what this is all about?
Lakota Sioux is a combining form language like Greek or Latin. For instance, Theo means God.
Okay.
In Lakota Sioux, Wakan is the same thing. So Wakantanka is God. Wakanisha means children. So Wakan means holy or sacred. Isha means to look at or perceive. So that's what they call their children.
Mm-hmm. And this book, Wakanisha, as it pertains to the book, as it pertains to your novel.
Well, Wakanisha is like a noun and a verb. Mm-hmm. It's a concept, the way they treat their children. Okay. To them, their children are absolutely sacred. They know that their children, are the key to their culture.
Hmm. Your imagery in Wakanisha was riveting. Where did you get your ideas?
In 1985, this is a weird story. In 85, my kids were little. I'm a retired teacher, and it was at work night, and I was laying in bed, about to fall asleep, and the entire contents of this novel just came to me. It was just there.
Wow, being a novelist, I'm jealous.
Yes, and that was in 85, and I, main character, Itunkala, little mouse, wanted her story told. Mm-hmm. Why she chose me, I'll never know. Mm-hmm. But I ignored her for over 20 years, and she was just like a toothache in my head. She just kept nagging me, tell my story. Mm-hmm. So finally in about 2012, 2013, I said, okay, I give up. And this story just poured out. In fact, the stories came out, the chapters came out of order. Mm-hmm. They just poured out. I had to figure out where they went because they weren't sequential.
Well, it all follows a fine line, so it's interesting that you say that they came out in different orders. It wasn't a master plan.
Not at all.
Wow.
She just gave me, it was like I was, when I write, it's like I'm seeing it. I'm just taking dictation.
Well, that leads me to this question. There's a lot of Native American history in the book, and do you have any Indian blood?
No, not that I know of. I mean, I think we all have Native American blood on our hands, but no.
That wasn't the question, but I get the reference.
No, I'm German English. Mm-hmm.
Well, since you brought up blood on our hands, you depict several violent encounters the Indians had with whites in great detail. Would you like to elaborate on how you got to that point?
Well, when this first started coming to me, and I started doing the research, I was just about the first year was just really angry. You know, the stuff that was coming out of me was just this horrible stuff. I wrote a fairly detailed account of the Sand Creek Massacre, and I don't know if you know what that is.
I do, yeah. But you can share with our audience just an abbreviated form.
To just give you a sense of history, the Native Americans were being forced onto the plains by the American government. And even in the early 1860s, the chiefs were basically saying, we get it, you guys are taking over, we'll do what you want us to do. And on Sand Creek, there was a Cheyenne tribe. The chief's name was Black Kettle. He had a really large tribe, but the place was so horrible that most of the men, the warriors and the hunters, were off hunting. And Black Kettle had an American flag and a white flag on his teepee because that was where he was told to be by the cavalry. Well, the Colorado militia came in, surrounded the tribe, spent the night drinking, and then in the morning just butchered them.
Was that led by Covington?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. It didn't serve the U.S. well at all. So they butchered them and they dispersed. They dispersed.
They networked. The survivors got out, told the story. The rest of the tribes realized even though they were where they were supposed to be doing what they were supposed to be doing, the white man couldn't be trusted anyway. So the Sand Creek Massacre set up Little Bighorn 10 years later.
But something that came up in the novel was Spirit Quest.
Right.
Would you care to share what Spirit Quest is?
Well, it's something that's in a lot of cultures. When mostly boys at about age 13, but some of the girls too, when they feel this call, they go off. They spend time away to discover themselves. And it's at that point, you know, they'll have a vision, something will happen, but they will come back with a totem or a spirit guide.
How long does this quest usually last? Is it weeks, months, years?
Days to weeks. It just depends on the kid. Every one of them's different.
And the quest involves something different for each?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And Indians tend to, their names change,
yes,
evolve in their lifetimes. And would this be one of the times when they...
Sure. So typically the Lakota Sioux, and that's what my novel is about, is the Lakota Sioux, they don't name their children until the child has done something interesting, something crazy. And then that's where their first name comes from. And then as their life goes on, it might be in a battle or they've saved somebody, but then their name will change.
And a name could change 3 or 4 times in their lifetimes, yeah. This is interesting because this I didn't know. I've even written a Western, but the use of telegraphs between the cavalry and Dodge City, was that depiction historically
Oh, absolutely.
accurate? Yeah.
In about 1865, 1866, the telegraph put the Pony Express out of business. I mean, if you think about technology and its importance in today's life, it was about 150 years ago that the United States was finally connected with telegraph. So the Indians had no such technology, and that's how those two parties were able to come together and do that part of the book where our little tribe got massacred.
How do you know so much about that area? Obviously, you live in. Give us a little history of it.
Well, I grew up there. I grew up in a little town called Garden City, Kansas, right on the Colorado-Kansas border, very close to Sand Creek. For reference, if any of you have read In Cold Blood, Truman Capote,
Yes.
that's the town where the murder took place. Yeah.
So have you physically visited Sand Creek
Yes.
and the particular spot where the massacre?
Yes.
How did that affect you?
It was hard.
Was it yeah?
More specifically, both of my grandfathers owned great, huge tracts of land that had maybe 15 or 20 years before had been owned by everybody, if you know what I mean. So the Native Americans didn't have a notion of ownership. In other words, they thought that everybody owned the land, the air, the water. So my mother's father owned about 4 square miles of Native American prairie. It's still there. And for just a point of reference, that's where the book began and ended.
And your father's side, they owned
Lots of land. My grandfather Foster was kind of an entrepreneur. He came in, was there way before the Depression, and as the Depression happened, he kind of built this house of cards. He would buy land for a down payment, sell half the mineral rights, use that money to buy another piece of land, make a down payment, sell the mineral rights, and he just, like I said, and he made it through. And that's where all the land in my family, all the farmland in my family came from.
Since you brought up mineral rights, there's a kind of interesting thing you mentioned about the Missouri River. Is that the same river that's right presently involved in the pipeline?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
So this is, I guess where I would like to go with this is that we're heading into politics and religion.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is that okay, Coco?
It's okay.
We got the okay. Let's go.
So
Let's go, man, go.
Native Americans, their politics and their religion were one and the same. So if you think about the treaty of the Laramie Treaty back in the early 1850s, they gave that whole area, North, South Dakota, Montana, parts of Nebraska, the Black Hills. That was theirs to keep. That was their land forever.
Right.
Until the sun shines, the grass will grow. It belongs to the Lakota Sioux. A man we all know, Custer, brought a small party of men in and geologists to see if there were places perhaps they could put forts. What they were really looking for was gold, and they found gold in the Black Hills. And this small party I'm talking about, that's tongue-in-cheek. He brought 10,000 men with him. Gold was discovered. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
So gold was discovered in the Black Hills, and the settlers came pouring in. But this particular story that I want to tell, on land that the natives owned, that was given to them by the U.S. government, the Missouri River, the same river that has this pipeline issue that's going on right now, was in the news then, it's in the news now. But there was this large flatboat floating down the Missouri River. There were 30, 40 white men, all with guns. They had a cannon mounted on the bow of this boat. And it was very obvious that they were guarding something. So they floated past some Indians. The Indians basically said, hey, this is our place. You're not supposed to be here. Fight broke out. There was a lot of shooting going on. The white guys in the boat fired the cannon at the Indians. It wasn't properly mounted. It ripped the front of the boat off. The boat went into a sandbar. And the Indians swarmed over, killed all the men, took the weapons, and found these enormous, beautifully made canvas bags full of gold dust. Well, for them, the bags were perfect for storing food. So they dumped all the gold out. So what you think is they could have lived like kings. But they did live like kings. Everything that they needed or wanted was free for them to take. Their wealth was their skill set. So
they got rid of the garbage and
yes,
kept the bags.
but I mean, if you think about it, what were the white men guarding?
Rock.
Metal.
Metal.
This imaginary thing. You can't eat it.
Right.
But the system that we've set up, this imaginary system with money, well, you can trade the gold, but the government, keeps this Fort Knox. That's where it's all based. So we have to buy into the system. And the Indians didn't have the system. They just taught their children the skill set, and by the time they were 10, they could take care of themselves.
Also in your book, you managed to convey a deep spirituality that the Indians had about nature, and it sounds like that's where we're going right now. Want to flesh that out a little?
A little bit. If you can picture where Siberia and Russia nearly touch, okay, there have been times where there have been deep, the ice ages where that froze across there and allowed the people from Asia to cross over. Those are the ancestors of the Native Americans. That's the theory. But the first crossing was about 30,000 years ago. And there was another one about 15,000 years ago. But if you can picture the North and South American continents, all of the different ecological niches that exist on both continents, those people moved into every one of those ecological niches from the Arctic Circle clear down to the tip of South America, desert, rainforest, and they learned to live in those different areas. And that became their religion and their knowledge base. That place where they lived, it was holy to them because it gave them life.
What I'd like you to do is just mention at least some of your other books.
The first book, Wakanisha is Love Enough, basically saying children is our love enough. That's book one. The story I was given actually comes up to present day and slightly into the future. So I'm on book two. Book two is called Wakanisha, Can We Stand? And it goes from the main character, Mouse, goes from 1865 to 1880. She has a daughter. Her daughter's story is in the second book from 1880 to the turn of the century.
And the third book will be from there to present.
Well, the third book will probably go into, say, the 1950s or the 1960s, and then the next book will hopefully.
Now you say when the books that you were given.
Yes.
This is that flash that you had in the dream? So you had three full books? I hate you. It's a lot more difficult. Coco, what have we got?
Did you have interaction with the Native Americans while you were growing up?
Very little. Very little.
That was a great question. What else you got for us, Coco?
Well, if you...
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Okay. So when I was a child, a little kid, my grandfather, my mother's father, would take me out onto the prairie. And he would show me the scars that they left. And the only scars they left were cooking fires. Unlike open pit mines and clear cuts that we do. And we found arrowheads, but I was never really interested in all that. So it wasn't until the story came to me that I just became passionate about it. But perhaps she chose me because I lived there. I walked on that land.
Thanks, Coco, for bringing that up. We do have another question. Hello, Bill.
When you were growing up.
That's not Coco, incidentally, talking. No. Go on, Bill. Go.
When you were growing up, was any of this Native American history available to you, aware to you and your neighbors, or is that a recent study and research that you have been doing?
Well, I'm assuming it was available. I wasn't interested. I could have cared less about it until this story pounded itself into my head.
Thanks.
Do you know if another Native American, Lakota Sioux, has read your book?
I hope so. I've supplied them to the libraries on the in the reservation.
Thank you.
Is
Bill,
your book available in a local library of the area that you're writing about?
Yes. So I'm from Garden City, and the books are in the Garden City, Kansas library, and they're also in the Veneta library.
well, is that all with our questions? I think that's it, unless you care to share something else. Have you got something else for us?
That's all I've got.
That was wonderful. What a great interview. Thank you for joining us
thank you.
today. Thank you.
We're going to finish up with the song. We're going to see if an upright bass, a saxophone player, and a skinny little piano player can get funky. What do you think? The bet's on? Bet's on? All right. We got a head start with the saxophone player, right? It's Running with the Dogs. 3, 4. All right. Here we go. Let's roll. Look here. I'll listen close and you'll hear the howl of the pack on their midnight prowl. When I answer to nature's call, I'm a running with the dogs. I'm running with the dogs. I'm running with the dogs. I'll tell you true, I'm no angel, I'm no saint. Many good things that I ain't. Call me the devil just because I'm a running with the dogs. I'm running with the dogs. I'm running with the dogs. A sweet thing. Here you go. Next time, here you go. Give me some. shake a Mercedes and chasing bones to beg. By calm moonlight I will bare my jaws and be out running with the dogs. I'm running with the dogs. I'm running with the dogs. I'm running with the dogs. Yeah, yeah, a sweet thing. Yeah, come on. Next time. Here we go. Like that. A little funky for you. Thank you so much for coming out today. Enjoy the sun. And not too much of it, please.
Thank you.